To the latest after the death of an LSU sophomore earlier this month. The details are incredibly disturbing as we have learned that several people are now charged with raping Madison Brooks after a night of drinking just before she died.
The story is incredibly difficult, and we've been reporting on this now for days. The coroner has officially said that the manner of death is still under investigation, but has officially ruled that the cause of death was due to multiple traumatic injuries. Police say that the LSU sophomore had been abandoned on the side of the road by 3 men and a 17-year-old. Prosecutors say 2 of the men raped the victim while the others watched.
The headlights cut through the darkness like searchlights piercing fog. It was 3 a.m. in the morning on January 15, 2023, and the rideshare driver navigated the empty streets of Baton Rouge with the kind of practiced ease that comes from countless late-night shifts. The subdivision was quiet, the kind of silence that settles over residential neighborhoods in the hours between Saturday night revelry and Sunday morning peace. Then, in an instant that would haunt him forever, something appeared in his headlights. A figure, a young woman, standing in the middle of Burbank Drive. There was no time to stop, no time to swerve. The sickening impact echoed through the darkness, and the driver's hands trembled as he grabbed his phone to call 911. When he stepped out of his vehicle, his legs barely supporting him, he found her lying on the pavement, barely conscious. Her blonde hair splayed across the asphalt like a halo. Her LSU spirit still fighting even as her body surrendered to injuries no 19-year-old should ever endure. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their urgent voices cutting through the night as they worked frantically to stabilize her. But as they loaded her into the ambulance and raced toward the hospital, one question hung in the air like a ghost. What was a college sophomore doing alone on a dark road at 3 in the morning? Within hours, Madison Kennedy Brooks would be dead, and the investigation into her final night would uncover a truth far more horrifying than a tragic accident. Welcome back, AMC True Crime family. Before we dive deeper into Madison's story, I need to pause for just a moment because this case, this story, hits different. It's raw, it's devastating, and it demands to be heard. If you're new here, welcome to a community that doesn't just consume true crime. We honor the victims, we seek truth, and we demand justice. Here's what I need from you right now. Hit that subscribe button. This channel survives because of you. Every subscriber, every like, every comment tells YouTube that these stories matter, that these victims deserve to be remembered. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. And listen, if this story grips you the way I know it will, hit that notification bell. Tomorrow I'm bringing you another case that will leave you speechless. You don't want to miss it. Now let's get back to Madison's story, because she deserves to be heard. Every detail, every moment, every truth. To understand the magnitude of what was stolen that night, you need to know who Madison Brooks was. Not just another statistic, not just another headline, but a real person with dreams that stretched toward the horizon and a heart that beat with genuine kindness. Madison was born into a family that would become her anchor in every storm. Her parents, John and Ashley, raised her alongside her siblings, Aiden, Brady, and Kaylin, in Covington, Louisiana, where Spanish moss drapes from ancient oaks and community still means something. Her grandparents had a special name for her, their sunshine. It wasn't just an endearment, it was the truth. Madison had one of those rare spirits that seemed to generate its own light, illuminating every room she entered. At St. Scholastica Academy, Madison wasn't content to simply exist in the background. She attacked life with the kind of fearless enthusiasm that adults often forget how to access. Honor roll wasn't just about grades for her, it was about excellence. Cheerleading wasn't just about pom-poms, it was about lifting others up. Her involvement in the fellowship of Christian athletes and Doves for Life spoke to something deeper. A young woman who believed she could make a difference, who wanted to use her voice to help those who couldn't speak for themselves. When graduation came in 2021, Madison set her sights on Louisiana State University with the kind of determination that made her parents both proud and terrified. LSU, where Friday nights meant Tiger Stadium roaring with 102,000 fans, where academic excellence lived alongside Southern traditions, where a girl from Covington could become anything she dreamed. And Madison did dream. She declared her major in communication because she loved stories, the messy, complicated, beautiful narratives that make us human. When she was accepted into the prestigious Manship School of Mass Communication, her family celebrated like she'd won the lottery, because in a way, she had. Manship was one of the top journalism programs in the country, the kind of program that launched careers and changed lives. Madison joined Alpha Phi sorority, finding sisterhood with young women who would later say that her heart was pure and her laugh was infectious. She went skydiving because the idea of falling through clouds with nothing but a parachute and trust made her feel alive. She loved skiing, carving down mountains with the same fearless energy she brought to everything. She traveled whenever she could, collecting experiences like some people collect stamps. But ask anyone who really knew Madison what mattered most to her, and they'd tell you the same thing: family. Weekly dinners weren't obligations. They were sacred. Long phone calls with her mom weren't chores. They were lifelines. Her siblings weren't just relatives. They were her best friends. By January 2023, Madison was thriving. She was a 19-year-old sophomore with her whole life stretching out before her like an unwritten book. She had no idea that the final chapter was about to be written in the worst way imaginable. January 14th, 2023, a Saturday night that started like countless others before it. If you've ever been to LSU, you know about Tigerland, that cluster of bars and clubs just off campus where students go to forget about exams and papers, to feel young and invincible, to make memories they'll either treasure or regret. At the heart of Tigerland sat Reggie's bar, and that's where Madison headed around 10 p.m. that night. It was supposed to be normal. It was supposed to be fun. It was supposed to be safe. But also at Reggie's that night were four men who would change everything. Casson Carver, 18 years old. Desmond Carter, just 17. Keon DeAndre Washington, 18. And Everett Lee, 28. The oldest of the group and Washington's uncle. Madison didn't know these men. They were strangers sharing the same space on the same night, their paths about to intersect in the worst possible way. Surveillance cameras captured everything that unfolded inside Reggie's bar, and what they recorded would become the backbone of a criminal case that's still unresolved more than 2 years later. The footage shows Madison and the 17-year-old suspect dancing together, hugging, at first glance, just two young people enjoying a Saturday night. But as the hours ticked by, something changed. The Madison who walked into Reggie's at 10 p.m., bright-eyed, steady on her feet, her smile quick and genuine, slowly disappeared. By 1 a.m. in the morning, the cameras captured a different scene entirely. Madison stumbling, Madison falling, friends and strangers alike trying to help her back to her feet, their faces etched with concern. She was slurring her words. She couldn't keep her balance. The signs were unmistakable, undeniable. And the four men were watching. Around 2 a.m. in the morning, Reggie's began closing. Last call had come and gone. The lights came up, harsh and unforgiving, and people started filing out into the warm Louisiana night. This was the moment when everything went horribly, irreversibly wrong. The surveillance footage from outside the bar shows Madison leaving, but she's not walking with friends. She's following the four men, all four of them, out to the parking lot toward Carver's vehicle. According to statements the men would later give police, Madison asked them for a ride home. Think about that for a moment. Madison didn't know these men. She had no idea where they would take her, and by every account, including their own, she was in no condition to be making decisions about anything, let alone her safety. But she got into Carver's car anyway. Carver behind the wheel, Everett Lee in the passenger seat, and in the back seat, squeezed together, Madison Brooks, Keon Washington, and Desmond Carter. The car pulled away from Reggie's bar, disappearing into the darkness of Baton Rouge, and somewhere in that darkness, the vehicle stopped. What happened next would become the center of a criminal case built on conflicting testimonies, surveillance footage, and one undeniable fact. Madison Brooks was catastrophically intoxicated, and the men in that car knew it. According to Cason Carver's own statement to investigators, his own words, Madison was very unstable on her feet, was not able to keep her balance, and was unable to speak clearly without slurring her words. He saw it. They all saw it. There was no mistaking her condition. But according to the arrest affidavit, Keon Washington and Desmond Carter asked Madison repeatedly to have sex with them, and according to their version of events, she said yes. She consented. Here's where the prosecution's case gets its teeth. Louisiana law defines third-degree rape as a situation where the victim is incapable of resisting or understanding the nature of the act due to a stupor or abnormal condition of mind produced by an intoxicating agent, and the offender knew or should have known of the victim's incapacity. When investigators asked Carver directly whether he believed Madison was too drunk to consent to sex, his answer was two words that would haunt him. I guess. Not absolutely not. Not she seemed fine, just I guess. Carver would later tell investigators that what happened in the back of his car made him feel uncomfortable and that he hated it. But he did nothing to stop it. Everett Lee allegedly stepped out of the vehicle during the alleged assault, but he too did nothing to intervene, nothing to call for help, nothing to say, "This is wrong." Two men allegedly assaulted Madison in the back of that car. Two others remained present, witnesses to a crime they claim never happened, complicit in a horror they insist was consensual. But the defense attorneys would later reveal something that prosecutors argued was even more damning. Someone in that car recorded video. Video of Madison, intoxicated and slurring, inside the vehicle after the alleged assault. In the footage, you can hear her voice, thick with alcohol, struggling to form words. "I'm sorry that I offended you that bad. Get out. Get out. I will Uber on my own." She was asking to leave. She wanted out of that car, and they let her. It was approximately 2:50 a.m. in the morning when they dropped Madison off near the Pelican Lake subdivision, a neighborhood she didn't know, in an area she was completely unfamiliar with. Then they drove away, leaving her standing alone in the darkness. The toxicology report would later reveal that Madison's blood alcohol content was 0.319%, nearly 4 times the legal limit for driving in Louisiana. To put that in perspective, at that level of intoxication, medical experts say a person can experience alcohol poisoning, loss of consciousness, complete inability to make rational decisions or understand danger. Some people die at that level. Madison was walking or trying to walk at that level. There were barely any streetlights in the subdivision. Madison was disoriented, confused, her 19-year-old brain drowning in alcohol, trying desperately to figure out where she was and how to get home. Somehow, she wandered from the subdivision toward Burbank Drive, and somehow, she ended up standing in the middle of the dark roadway. The rideshare driver came around the bend with no warning. One moment, the road was empty. The next moment, Madison was there, illuminated in his headlights for just a split second before impact. He called 911 immediately, his voice shaking as he tried to explain what had just happened. He wasn't impaired. He wasn't speeding. He wasn't texting. He was just driving home, doing his job, when a nightmare materialized in front of his car. First responders arrived within minutes and rushed Madison to the hospital, her family receiving the call that every parent dreads. They raced to be by her side, praying for a miracle that wouldn't come. Hours later, Madison Kennedy Brooks was pronounced dead. The official cause: multiple traumatic injuries secondary to motor vehicle versus pedestrian collision. She was 19 years old. A night that started like any other, a Saturday out with the possibility of fun, ended with a young woman dying alone on a dark road, and 4 men would soon be facing criminal charges for what happened in the hours before her death. When the sun rose over Baton Rouge that Sunday morning, the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office was treating Madison's death as a tragic accident. Wrong place, wrong time. A terrible, senseless loss. But as investigators began piecing together the timeline, something didn't add up. Why was an LSU student standing in the middle of Burbank Drive at 3 a.m. in the morning? Where had she been? How did she get there? And most importantly, who had she been with? The surveillance footage from Reggie's bar changed everything. Investigators watched Madison arrive around 10 p.m., looking happy and normal. But as the hours passed, they watched her condition deteriorate. The stumbling, the falling, people helping her to her feet, the clear, undeniable signs of severe intoxication. And then, around 2 in the morning, they saw something that transformed this case from a tragic accident into a criminal investigation. Madison leaving with 4 men, strangers, getting into their vehicle. Less than an hour later, she was dead. The autopsy revealed what investigators feared: injuries consistent with sexual assault. This wasn't just a young woman who had too much to drink and made a bad decision. This was a crime scene. On January 23, 2023, 8 days after Madison's death, all 4 suspects turned themselves in to the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. The arrests sent shockwaves through LSU and the city of Baton Rouge. But just 4 days later, the defense attorneys representing the accused men held a press conference that stunned everyone watching. Attorney Ron Haley stood before cameras and made a claim that seemed almost cruel in its audacity. This is a tragedy, definitely not a crime. They claimed Madison consented to everything. They said she wasn't as intoxicated as police reports suggested. They promised video evidence that would prove their client's innocence. Based on the evidence that we're able to view today that one of our clients had on his cloud, Haley declared, she was not in a drunken stupor. I can sit here firmly and say that a rape did not occur that evening. Absolutely not a rape. For Madison's family, watching from their home in Covington, it felt like losing her all over again. Not only was their daughter gone, but now her character was being attacked. Her final hours dissected and dismissed, her trauma denied. The defense attorneys questioned the blood alcohol test. They questioned the surveillance footage. They questioned everything except their client's decision to have sex with a teenager who could barely stand. But when that video, the one the defense promised would exonerate their clients, was finally reviewed in court, something unexpected happened. It didn't save them. It condemned them. At a bond hearing, 19th Judicial District Judge Brad Myers watched the footage taken by one of the suspects inside the car with Madison. What he saw disturbed him deeply. The judge described the suspects as callously laughing at Madison, a drunk 19-year-old woman slurring her words, clearly impaired, asking to leave. Judge Myers also reviewed the surveillance footage from Reggie's bar showing Madison falling, struggling to stand, needing help from strangers just to stay upright. His conclusion was unequivocal. The evidence to me is clear. A crime occurred that night. The video the defense thought would save their clients instead reinforced the charges against them. And those charges were about to get more serious. On February 22, 2023, a grand jury convened to review the evidence. Their decision was swift and damning. Desmond Carter's charges were upgraded from third-degree rape to first-degree rape. He would be tried as an adult. If convicted, the sentence would be life in prison without the possibility of parole. But the case took an even darker turn when more allegations against Keon Washington surfaced. Another young woman came forward with a devastating claim. Washington had allegedly forced himself on her at a pool party in Walker, Louisiana, back in May 2020. She said he followed her into a room and attacked her, covering her mouth to silence her screams. She had reported it to police in 2021, but no charges were filed at the time. Now, with Madison's case in the headlines, investigators took another look. Then another victim emerged, a third alleged rape. This one in October 2022 in the same area of Baton Rouge where Madison died. The woman reported the assault to police on January 25, 2023, the day after Washington was arrested in Madison's case. Suddenly, Keon Washington wasn't just facing charges in Madison's death. He was facing 3 separate rape cases, 3 different women, 3 separate incidents spanning multiple years. A pattern was emerging, and it was horrifying. The defense fought another battle, one that revealed just how far they were willing to go. They wanted to introduce evidence of Madison's prior sexual history. Specifically, they claimed she had consensual rough sex with another man the day before she died. The defense argued this could explain her injuries and the lack of DNA evidence from the suspects. But prosecutors pushed back with fury. Under Louisiana law, a victim's sexual history is generally inadmissible in rape trials. It's irrelevant, it's prejudicial, and it's an attempt to blame the victim for her own assault. Madison's family had to endure hearing their daughter's most intimate moments discussed in legal briefs, debated in courtrooms, weaponized against her memory. In March 2024, the trial judge ruled against the defense. Madison's sexual history could not be used in court. The defense appealed, taking the case all the way to the Louisiana Supreme Court, and in October 2025, the Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision. The lower court's ruling stands. The fundamental right to present a defense, the justices wrote, does not require the trial court to admit irrelevant evidence. Madison's past could not be weaponized against her. Finally, a victory. Small, but meaningful. The prosecution, however, faced its own significant challenge. Sources revealed that no DNA from any of the 4 suspects was found inside Madison Brooks. In an age where DNA evidence often makes or breaks criminal cases, how do you prove rape without it? District Attorney Hiller Moore acknowledged the burden. We have the burden of proof. He is presumed innocent. We believe our case. We believe that he committed this offense. The case would have to rely on witness statements, Madison's condition, the circumstances, the video evidence, and the undeniable fact that a 19-year-old with a blood alcohol content of 0.319% cannot legally consent to anything. In June 2025, more than 2 years after Madison's death, Case and Carver finally entered a plea. Not guilty to first-degree rape, third-degree rape, and video voyeurism. His trial was set for December 1st, 2025. Washington and Carter still had no trial dates. The wheels of justice, it seemed, turned agonizingly slowly. Meanwhile, LSU and Louisiana authorities took action against the place where it all began. Reggie's Bar. The Louisiana Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control issued an emergency suspension of the bar's liquor license, citing a potential threat to public safety. LSU President William Tate was blunt in his assessment. All but one of the suspects involved in this horrific scenario were underage, yet were able to consume alcohol at a local bar. Enough is enough. Reggie's Bar had a troubled history. Prior incidents of violence, including a stabbing in 2016, an alleged rape in the parking lot, and a man pointing a loaded gun at patrons. The bar's pattern of problems had finally caught up with it. From the ashes of tragedy, Madison's family worked to build something meaningful. The Madison Brooks Scholarship Fund was established to support students at the LSU Manship School of Mass Communication, the program Madison had just been accepted into, the dream she would never get to fulfill. But her dream didn't die with her. Through the scholarship, Madison's passion for storytelling, for making a difference, lives on in other students who will benefit from her legacy. Alpha Phi Sisters kept Madison's memory alive through vigils, fundraisers, and advocacy. Along Burbank Drive, a roadside memorial grew. Flowers, candles, handwritten notes. "We love you, Maddie." Her grandfather, Kurt LeBlanc, captured the essence of who Madison was in a single sentence. "She was pure joy and light. We will miss her terribly." But Madison's legacy extends far beyond a scholarship or a memorial. Her case sparked a national conversation about consent, about campus safety, about the responsibility we all have to protect the vulnerable. Universities across the country re-examined their policies. Bystander intervention programs were implemented. Young women learned Madison's story and vowed to never let their friends leave with strangers. And there was one more detail that perfectly captured who Madison was, even in her final moments. Madison was an organ donor. Her heart and kidneys were donated to save the lives of others. Even in death, Madison gave life. She was a hero, her sorority sisters wrote, not because of how she died, but because of how she lived, and how she continued to give even after her life was stolen. As of now, the legal battle continues. Casson Carver's trial approaches. Keon Washington awaits trial on multiple charges. Desmond Carter faces life in prison without parole if convicted. The outcomes remain uncertain. But one thing is absolutely certain: Madison Brooks deserved better. She deserved to make it home safely that night. She deserved to graduate from manship. She deserved to build the career she'd dreamed about, to tell the stories that mattered, to live the full, beautiful life that stretched out before her like an unwritten book. Madison Kennedy Brooks should be 22 years old today. Instead, her family visits her grave. Instead, 4 men face criminal charges. Instead, a community grapples with uncomfortable questions about responsibility, accountability, and justice. If there's any light in this darkness, it's this. Madison's story has changed things. Young women are more cautious. Friends watch out for each other more carefully. Bars face stricter oversight. The conversation about consent has evolved, and every student who receives the Madison Brooks Scholarship will carry her name, her dream, her light forward into a future she should have been part of. Madison's legacy isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that behind every true crime story is a real person, a daughter, a sister, a friend whose life mattered. Madison Kennedy Brooks mattered. Her dreams mattered. Her voice mattered. And now, through all of us who refuse to forget her, through the changes her story has inspired, through the students who will benefit from her scholarship, Madison's light continues to shine. Her grandparents were right all along. She was their sunshine. And even though she's gone, that sunshine still reaches us, warming us, guiding us, reminding us to be better, to do better, to protect each other. That's Madison's true legacy. Not how she died, but how she lived, and how she continues to inspire us to build a world where no other family has to endure what hers has endured. Justice may still be making its way through the courts, but Madison's impact? That's already been delivered. Rest in peace, Madison Kennedy Brooks. Your story has been told. Your light still shines. Thank you for watching Madison's story to the end, for staying, for bearing witness, for letting her story matter. If this case gripped you, I've got another one waiting that's even darker, more twisted, with twists you won't see coming. Click the video on your screen right now to watch it. Before you go, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and what you thought about Madison's case. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay safe, and never stop demanding justice.